Hi, I'm Steve Higgins. I'm the Director of Animal and Environmental Compliance for the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture, Food, and the Environment. Today I'm going to talk to you about composting fallen stock or animal mortalities. The easiest way to get rid of an animal mortality, in my opinion, is to compost that animal. The means by which you compost that animal is basically get a hold of a bulking agent like tree mulch from a company that's coming through and cleaning out power lines through your particular area. When they're in your area, just have them drop that stuff off at your farm, and now you have it stockpiled so that when you do have an animal that falls, then basically you have that material ready to compost that animal. The process for composting it is basically to create a bed of that bulking agent. Normally what I like to have is, and it depends on the size of the animal, is let's say we're doing a mature cow of say 12 to 1,500 pounds. What you want to have is about 3 feet of material or bed built, because what's going to happen is when you're constructing that with a front end loader, you're basically going to have fluffy material. Now when you come time to take that cow and stick her on that material, then basically her weight is going to squish down that fluffy material. Therefore her belly is probably going to be about 2 feet off the ground, which is what we want. We want at least 2 feet underneath and on the sides of the animal. On top of it, we're looking more to have about 3 or 4 feet of that material. So you put the cow on there, you set her on there, you can have a whole animal if you want. If you increase the surface area, then the composting process will go that much faster. But then you take the bulking agent and you cover up that animal again to make a pile with an angle of repose. So when you get done, you have pretty much a 6 foot tall pile, which is what I have in the background. So with that, what you have is you'll have 2 feet underneath and 2 feet on the size of the animal and about 3 or 4 feet on the top. With traditional composting compared to this, there is no stirring of this pile. Once you make a pile, you're pretty much done. Now, after about 4 weeks, what's going to happen is the top of the pile is basically going to collapse. That means that the rib cage of that animal has collapsed as well, and so that void has been taken up. So what you need to do is go get some more material and fill in that notch. Otherwise, when it rains, you'll have rainfall that goes through there. And we don't need additional moisture to decompose this carcass. You go and get more material, you fill in that notch. After a couple more weeks, that animal should be completely gone. If you have no use for that pile, then just let it go. But if you need to use it, then what you would do is you would add on another component onto that pile. What we have right here is what we call a linear composting method. So we start up at the top of the hill with an animal, we make a pile, we put the animal in there, we cover it up. Let's say 2 days later we have a 400-pound steer that dies. We go back up to that same area, we get some more material, and we extend that bed out, say 4 feet, maybe 5. And then we take that 400-pound carcass and stick it on that shelf and push it into the existing pile, and then we can cover that up. A couple days after that, let's say we have a 200-pound calf that dies. Then we can take that calf and stick it on top of that pile, cover it up, and bring it out. So what you're doing is essentially you're bringing out this three-dimensional pyramid out this way. Eventually what's going to happen is the first carcass is going to be completely gone. And if you're short on material, then you can take material that's from the upper end and bring it down to the lower end and continue composting animals. So what we've got right here is and then on our farm, with this particular operation, we normally get about 4 to 6 cycles out of this same material. We reuse the same material over and over and over again, which is good because once that wood material or that bulking agent gets inoculated with those beneficial bacteria that we need, and also the populations of the bacteria that we need, then what happens is the next animal goes that much quicker because essentially this product is inoculated. Another thing too to be aware of is basically that you need a certain particle size to do this. Since these bacteria are breathing air, you need air to move in and out of the pile, but you don't want too much because then those nasty gases will basically be able to escape. So what you want to do is you want to manage that particle size. So sawdust would basically require a smaller pile because it hangs on to a lot of that air and doesn't allow an exchange of gases in and out of the pile. Wood shavings is even better, but you need to get a taller pile. If you get into large wood chips, then you need to make a larger pile because what you want to do is just kind of restrict that airflow so that those bacteria still have air to breathe, but you're not exuding these decomp gases. Most of your animal deaths are going to occur in January, February, March when it's the wettest time of the year. When you construct these piles, if you get working with a material that's too wet, then what you're going to do is you're going to make these clods like this. And a clod like this does not allow air to penetrate it. What we need is what I would call a friable product. So just be aware of that clods are not going to compost an animal as well as a friable product. Okay, so let me talk about some very important components of this process. And one of those is basically siting this operation. From my perspective, I like to site a composting facility near the animal production facility because I like this distance traveled to be reduced as much as possible. And that's where the animal deaths are going to be occurring, so it makes sense to have them here. You don't want to do this on the back 40 because that's just too far to go, but you want to do this on a summit position, someplace where you would actually build a building. You do not want to put a composting operation in a draw, in a sinkhole, near your property line, in a floodplain, those types of things. Anywhere where you basically have well-drained soils. Now, once you start doing this process, I mean, as far as surfaces, you could actually do this on grass if you wanted to, depending on how many animals you have that are fallen. But if you have a significant number of animals, then you want to set up basically a surface that will allow you to do this composting operation in all weather. And so what that usually means is the cheapest way to do this is with geotextile fabric and rock. You can also use what we call a soil cement pad and create an impervious layer to basically do this on, or you can do this on concrete. Typically, I want the concrete to be flat or a 2% slope to get it to drain. This is a little bit too excessive right here as far as getting away moisture content. As far as any runoff that might come off this pad, you want it to go through what we would call a vegetative filter, some buffer distance of basically grass where this material could go through there, and basically any kind of filtration can happen, any kind of treatment can happen, and also you can have infiltration of that water through the soil profile, which is the best way to remediate any kind of contaminants in the fluid. And then also, once you're done with this material, you can land apply it and you can get a beneficial reuse out of this. Typically what you're looking at as far as nutrient content on this material after you get done with it is about 8 pounds of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium respectively per ton. Ideally, you want to use this on your property. You do not want to export it because that could lead to some sort of a vector transport. I have a lot of producers that are concerned that if they compost an animal that's died and they land apply it to their fields, have they just inoculated their fields and spread out that bacteria? The answer is no, 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 no. The beneficial bacteria that are in this pile destroy these harmful pathogens. It's simple antibiotics. It's one bacteria eliminating another bacteria. So that's how this works. So there's nothing to worry about as far as land applying this material to your farm. Because you're not here, I can just describe for you that there is no odor that is given off these piles. And since there is no odor, there is no animals that are attracted to this. So this process is not a big deal as far as you're not interested in having flies on your farm and odors on your farm and vermin be attracted to your farm. If you do this process correctly, and it's very easy to do that, you will never have any issues. No one will ever know what you're doing on your farm. From a water quality standpoint, this is entirely legal to do this on your own farm. You do not have to tell anyone that you're doing this. There is no permit involved, there's no notification involved. This is a legal means of decomposition of an animal.